Hello everyone, it's Finance Eddie, and today we're going to be talking about why Jeff Bezos stepped down from Amazon, what it means that he's going to be replaced, what the future of the e-commerce sector is, what kind of growth we can expect, and as well, which companies are companies to watch right now. I'm going to break up the sectors of e-commerce into three different sectors. The first sector is going to be just huge ones, pretty much only Amazon, which is international. You can buy pretty much anything you want. The second one is going to be companies that are resellers, so where you can buy secondhand goods, like eBay is the biggest one, but then there's a lot of ones in the specific different countries. And then the last one is going to be online stores that you can set up by yourself, like Shopify and Etsy, where you can literally go and say, I want to sell t-shirts or whatever you want to sell. You set up a store and then you have your storefront. So let's get right into the content. Let's not waste any time. All right, guys, if you're watching this video, you know who this guy is. So let's talk about him and what he's done. So Jeff is the Amazon founder, and he's going to step down as CEO. He's going to give the company's reins over, so the CEO position, to a guy called Andy Jassy. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Jeff is going to remain as someone who's on the executive chair, which is ultra high up. It's like you got the president of companies usually, and then you have like right below that. Well, that's going to be where Jeff is going to chill out. And you guys might think this means that he's given up on Amazon and that it sets a bad precedent and that Amazon is going to tank right now. That's absolutely not the case. So let me give you a little history lesson right now. If we rewind back in time, we've got a couple of examples of this exact situation. So let's start with Microsoft. Bill Gates, he steps down. He gets another guy in who used to be pretty much his right-hand man. That didn't work out. Now they've got Satya Nadella there, who's also been at Microsoft forever. He knows the company inside and out. He's doing brilliant things with Microsoft. Microsoft is taking off, right? So Bill Gates thought it was time to leave. He wanted to focus on different endeavors. He puts in someone who he trusts to run the company, and the company does great. Let's move on to Apple. Steve Jobs leaves because he was forced to leave. That's a sad story. But basically, he chose as well his right-hand man, Tim Cook, who at the time was COO, Chief Operating Officer, and he chose him because he knows the company inside and out to run the whole show when Steve eventually had to go. So we've got two examples already. Let me give you one more just to drive the point home. We've got Google over here. We've got Larry Page. We've got Sergey Brin. They also stepped down. They put in Sundar Pichai, who's also been at the company forever, knows the company inside and out, and has done brilliant things with it. So you see a pattern here. When the founders are ready to step away from the company, they take whoever they trust the most to run the whole ship, and they give them control, and so that they can focus on their other ventures and whatever those guys spend their time on. So that's pretty much where Jeff must be right now. He's going to hand the company over to Andy, and we can expect there to be pretty much no operational difference, and we'll see how Amazon does over the coming years. But judging from how it's positioned as the number one player in the field of a widely expanding sector, we can only expect good things from them. So let's get right into what I think about the e-commerce sector. So let me play for you guys a little video here. And if you're curious what exactly Andy was doing at Amazon, well, he was head as well as setting up the whole cloud division at Amazon, which is the biggest part of their business, which is the biggest profit for Amazon. So this guy is a superstar in his own right, and had he been at any other company, he probably would have excelled as well. So great that he's at Amazon, great that he knows the company inside and out. This is probably only a good thing. So let me show you this. E-commerce boom fuels record online competition. This is talking about the change since the pandemic began. So
nearly 150 million new shoppers came online during the pandemic, bringing e-commerce sales to an all-time high. New customers means new competition.
So, as you can see here, just since the pandemic started, we've had 150 million customers come into the market. Now, that makes a lot of sense. People are home. Right now, this sector had a huge boost in 2021, but I reckon that they're just going to keep building off this momentum. And before that, they had plenty of momentum anyway. And so this growth is nothing out of the ordinary for them. It's just a little bit better than everybody expected for the year. But there's pretty obvious reasons for that, right? Everyone's home. Everybody prefers to order stuff from home rather than going to the shopping mall or somewhere else. So, that's why you've got this huge uptick now in e-commerce between like 2019 and 2020. But you'll see that the sector is actually growing so quickly that even though this is a relatively high blip, it looks like not that much different, right? If all of a sudden all the automakers in the world sold like 30% more cars, you would just see a huge bump. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. So I pulled up here a bunch of different articles that show the history of the e-commerce market and as well the growth over the past couple of years, as well as projected into the future. Now, how you define e-commerce will change exactly the size of the market. So that's why I picked a couple of articles here, but we're going to get through this. We're going to get the idea. So if I zoom in a little bit here for you, we start in 2014. So this is all up to this date here is probably historical data, right? So you have, I don't know, just under a 20% growth every year. Let's call it around 15%, right? 15% year over year. Here we saw a bit of a bigger jump, but as I told you, since the jumps are so big every year anyway, if you look at the delta here versus here, this one is a little bit bigger, right? Between this and this, but because the gap is so big every year anyway, and because the sector is growing so fast, you can barely notice it. And as you see, as each line gets bigger, a smaller delta results in a larger total number change, right? So that's as well why you don't see that delta continue, right? Because otherwise it would be like this big of a jump. Okay, anyway, so what you see here is that right now in 2020, this article values it at $4.2 trillion. And by 2023, they expect to see it at 6.5. And let me show you another article by the same company, by the same guys, right? So this is an article by Statista, and this is as well by Statista. I've never heard of them, but this is the best research that I could find on the topic. So if we go here as well, in 2017, here they value it at about 1.4 trillion, and by 2025, they expect to see it go to 3.5 trillion, right? As opposed to the other article whereby by 2025 is not on here. What did they say for 2023? 3.2 trillion. And here they have it at like 6.5. So obviously they're defining it differently in both articles. But the point is as well, here, if you look at the numbers, you have approximately a 50% growth year over year. So let me then go to the third article here. Let me scroll up a bit further. So here again, you see that this is in USD trillions. So we start here in 17 at like 3 trillion. And this goes up to I don't know how many. But as you can see, again, it's a very optimistic outlook. But pretty much all articles come to the same conclusion, that you can expect about a 15% growth year over year for the next approximately 10 years, right? So let me go down here. And here they show that in 2020, they value it at about $10.36 trillion. And by 2027, they expect to see this jump to 27.15 trillion, which gives a growth rate of about 15% every year. Let's take a pause here. What does that mean? You have one of the biggest sectors already in the world, which is also one of the fastest growing sectors in the world, and Amazon is the biggest player in that field. Okay, put two and two together, Amazon's going to be fine. Jeff is going to focus on whatever he wants to focus on, and he definitely puts someone who he trusts to run the company to his best of his abilities, and the guy has a proven track record, right? Head of Amazon cloud computing since its inception. It's now the most profitable part of their business and the biggest part of their business. So the guy knows what he's doing at Amazon. Now, let me go into a bunch of different companies for you. So let's start, obviously, with the Amazon stock over the past 5 years. So as you see here, in February 12th of 2016, we were at about $500. And if we go all the way up here, we've seen about a 550% increase, which is great over 5 years. That's, let's just call it 100% per year, right? That's not exactly 100% correct, but let's just call it that. And that's a huge growth, right? You would be super happy if you doubled your money every year. So let's go then to Alibaba, which is the equivalent of Amazon, but in China. And China over here, if you start in the beginning, Alibaba started at $63. Oh wait, I need to grab this so you see the percentage change. I grabbed it a little further, it doesn't matter. And as you can see here, it's a 300% change up to today. So that's as well huge, right? You almost doubled your money every year. You would still be happy, right? And so let's then go on to JD.com, which is again another massive online retailer in China, and they've grown from $25 all the way up to 100. And here again, you see approximately 300% over 5 years. Yes, I have 5 years selected here. So let's stop here for a second because these are globally the biggest players that sell pretty much everything. If you just assume they're going to grow at the market rate and they're not going to start buying out the competition and also grow towards being more of a monopoly than they already are, well, then the most conservative estimate is something like a 15% growth year over year. That's the most optimistic one. And I would say that's probably a low for the biggest players in the field, right? Because if you think about it, not only have these guys positioned themselves to be in one of the best sectors in the world right now, they're also some of the strongest companies in the world right now. So if you combine those two, I think 50% is an extremely conservative estimate, and I reckon you could probably double or triple that year over year. So now let's move on to the next sector, which is no more that these guys are basically selling to you directly, right? You buy straight from them. Let's go on to eBay, where you're basically consumers are selling secondhand things to other consumers. So eBay over the past 5 years has grown from around what's this, $22 all the way up to, what is it at now? $61 and 170%. So that's still a bit lower. Clearly, this segment has been growing a little bit slower than the others, but eBay still remains the biggest one. They're a global presence. They have a bunch of competition in the countries themselves. That's why they might not be growing as fast as the previous companies were, right? Basically, eBay is the biggest one in the world, but then in a lot of countries, they each have their own version of eBay, which tends to be more popular in that country itself than eBay. So that's why, but I wouldn't rule these guys out either. And then the next segment I want to talk about is a segment where people can set up their own stores and sell directly to other people. So let's then go to Shopify. And Shopify is one of the biggest companies in the world. They have a revenue of 1.58 billion. You've probably never heard of them. I hadn't heard of them. They have a market cap of $154 billion, an insane PE ratio of 805, which means that people are extremely, extremely bullish and optimistic about the sector. You'll see it on the other company I'm going to show you as well, but specifically on the e-commerce sector, which allows you to set up your own store and sell directly to the consumer, right? So let me show you just how much these guys have gone up. Well, they didn't IPO exactly 5 years ago, I guess, or Google didn't start tracking it, but from $21 all the way up almost 6,000%, which is absolutely insane. I mean, 6,000% gains, no matter what money you put in, that's a fat stack. So that's Shopify. Let me show you as well another one who's pretty much directly competing with Shopify, but more based in the US exclusively, which is Etsy. And Etsy as well does the same as Shopify, just that they're a bit more well-known in the US and not as well-known internationally. But if we go back and we do the same analysis from $7 all the way up to $220, gives them a shockingly high rate of return of 3,000%. But if you look down here, again, you see a very high PE ratio, 126. Now, that's not as insane as Shopify, and you can always make the argument these companies are investing heavily and their PE ratio isn't an accurate reflection of how the company is, blah, 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 blah. But the point is that if you look at different companies in this sector, there were more that I looked at than just these two, but you pretty much see these high PE ratios everywhere. Now, that's a sign that people expect very high returns for these companies over the next coming years, but it's also a sign that a lot of that is already priced in. So how much upside is left in these types of companies? That's up to you. I would say these are riskier. These types of companies are riskier than the first two I talked about. So the eBays, for example, are slightly less riskier than this, and even less riskier than eBay would be sites like Alibaba or Amazon. So guys, if you enjoyed the video, if you want to know more about the e-commerce sector, let me know in the comments down below. Please leave a like. Please subscribe if you've been watching these regularly. And if you do subscribe, make sure to hit that bell down below and click all notifications so that you actually get notified when a video goes live. Thanks a lot for watching. Remember, I hope today you got a little bit smarter. Stay informed, make your own financial decisions, and always, always, always do your research. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.